Hello, everybody. We are back again for another episode of Vibes and Value with Rivelle, your host, Shayna Rivelle, and I'm here again to talk about different careers in arts, entertainment, academics, culture, and so much more. We bring different professionals of these fields and let them express, educate us, and even elevate what's going on in their industries and how they could work with financial professionals like yourself to elevate their way in finance and do so much more because, of course, their goals are our goals. So, first off, I would love to introduce a dear friend and well known of mine for, I will say, a very long time, Troy Elleston. Thank you so much for coming on the show today. It is a pleasure and privilege to have you. So please let me not take any more of the floor away. The floor is yours, and please introduce us and tell us more about yourself.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. So first of all, thank you, Shayna, for having me on. And yeah, we go back. So it's good to be your company again. So my name is Troy Elleston. I go by T Roy. My colleagues call me T Roy. And I have I work for a company called Versapay at this time. They operate in the fintech space, and I've been there for a little over 4 years now. So it's been really good helping to help B2B companies thrive and working with payments and software. And I'm sure we're going to get into AI and a lot of the stuff happening within finance right now. But I also have a little over a decade of experience teaching and tutoring and mentoring students. And education is very important to me. It's been a passion of mine for a very long time. And so, I love facilitating meetings and talking to people and helping young people to develop themselves and develop a sort of a brand, a personal brand within their industry and stuff like that. So yeah, I'm really happy to be here and thanks for the opportunity.
Well, you have definitely given us a mouthful from working in sciences to tech to arts and culture. Similar to me, you intersect in those fields like myself. And that's one of the reasons why I wanted to bring you on the segment to give those dual perspectives, right? What's it like on both sides of the fields? And regardless of whatever you do as a career, we cannot ignore finance, obviously. Finance intersects with all of such, right? So being within that, and you've done it for about, I will say, maybe 10 years or more. I will say 10 years, estimate counting around there. So what are one of the things in your field would you say that really stand out to you in your field? Like, what's one thing in your field, like, of your career that you will say, it really stands out to me and it really makes a difference with John Public that you interact with?
Yeah, that's that's a good question. There's a few things. So if you're talking about, I guess two major things to always think about in any field really, but especially in finance is, um, you know, the aspect of attitude, being curious. So curiosity is a big thing. And I think a lot of young people, right now, and just professionals in general, are having um, to fail forward and learn new skills every 3 or so years because a lot of the fields that we're in right now, whether it's finance or software, tech, um, banking, healthcare, even like just some skilled trades, they're changing so quickly because a lot of those fields were disrupted during COVID, and so people are having to learn very quickly. Even if you have a degree already, you still have to demonstrate a level of curiosity that allows you to learn and grow within your field. And that could be anything from learning new skills to learning how to work with AI, uh, to cross training at work or receiving mentoring. Like for example, if you're in a company and you want to scale upwards, if you want to enter a new role or go climb higher within your company, one way to do that is to receive mentoring and cross training, right? So different things like that. I would say a big thing within fintech and just financial technology field is just understanding technical skills and understanding how to take what you've learned in the classroom, and it doesn't have to be in the classroom. It could be, maybe you were networking at an event. You picked
Mm-hmm.
to apply to your role at work or something like that. Um, it's just being really flexible mentally, and the term in neuroscience is neuroplasticity. You want to have a very flexible mind, um, because what I find is when you interview for these roles, when you're working with these roles, what a lot of people look for is they look for soft skills and technical skills, right? So they look for, do you understand how like the software works, or do you understand how to, apply engineering techniques or whatever the case may be. But then they're
Mm-hmm.
all, so it's really having a balance, and and again, that works for anything. If you're working in healthcare, the attitude that you take to work is just as important as the technical side or whatever. So I just find that having that balance really helps, and continuing to learn forward, and really also paying attention to your industry. Things change so quickly, so you want to not just go to work and do your job. You want to actually pay attention to what's happening within the industry of your work, because if you don't stay up to date, then again, things are very competitive, and people with more experience and who are more aware can pass you by. So just keeping those things in mind.
So, for example, like for viewers who don't know, because many people were under the assumption that getting my education in Toronto was the first time I've ever seen Toronto. Fun fact, no. I grew up here until the age of 10 years old. I spent 12, 13 years being educated in Trinidad and Tobago, and then I came back up here. So, me meeting Troy was actually through that your tutoring program that many colleges have, and I was in the biotech program, right? And I was in there, and that's where I happened to meet you. And I remembered in meeting you, and of course I was with Sarana. Shout out to Sarana. And I remembered in when I first met you, your words were, you're like, you know what? From the way how you set your books and you sat down and he said, I just knew you were Caribbean. He's like, you were like, I just knew right away because I remember you first, and I remember I asked you why. You said the first thing he's like, well, good day, are you so and so? He said, I remember you like, that's the normal way that Caribbean people tend to address people. And I remember you had said that, you thought it was really interesting that I was able to like switch gears from being in sciences, doing arts, being in carnival. It was not the same Shayna that you would see. The same Shayna you saw in Centennial College was not the same Shayna that, would be switching. It was, it's very different. So I do agree with that, especially if you're a multi-career pursuit type of person, you have to switch gears. Not being able to switch gears, it's definitely going to be difficult. I don't think it's harmful, but it could probably be a bit of a toll on you, right?
Yeah,
It could
well,
be a
well,
bit of a
so
toll.
it depends on. So that I'm glad you brought that up, because it really depends, number one, on the person. I know for me, I've never been a one job guy, or I've always been, I've always dabbled in multiple things, and I say that because whatever you do, and I'll be more specific, whatever people go to you for determines how much money ultimately in the social landscape you'll make, right? Because we hear like this conversation about multiple streams of income and like what you can do and stuff like that. And so I think it's very useful to, again, to remain flexible with your options. Like if you're working in a certain field, let's say you're working as a marketing specialist, or you're working as a tech person or an IT, or even if you're working in retail, um, it's good. It's good to explore hobbies and passions outside of your work that will keep you, connected to your community, but also something on the side, like a job that you do. Because again, we know that with this economy, like there's a lot of people who have multiple jobs and they're trying to balance that. But if you're going to look at an option, it would make sense to do something that you're passionate about. So there's some people who, for example, might be working for a bank, but that might not be their passion. Their passion might be, I don't know, working out at the gym or whatever. So there's opportunities to get paid for what you're passionate about on the side. And so I just wanted to throw that out there, because I think it's like it's nice that you mentioned that.
Yeah, I do agree. Your passion, what you need, and what is essential, can be a lot to balance. because you're juggling a lot of things on one plate. So it can be difficult. And sometimes, like you said, maybe if you need to reach out, maybe you may need a mentor. Maybe you need somebody to talk to, somebody who's a little more versed in the field, or somebody who's a little more seasoned in some ways. You might need that. And if you are, I don't even think necessarily if you're a multi-career person, if your career even causes you to balance a lot of yourself, it's going to affect other aspects of you, right? Your physical health, your emotional health, your mental health, and your financial health. It's going to affect your financial health, and that definitely cannot be avoided. So, similarly, because like how you were like myself, but we're still very different fields. We're just multi-career people, just different fields. Would you say that there are impacts in your career that people don't necessarily see? Like people might see you, or you're going to the gym, or you're going to the charity benefit. Oh, you're looking nice in your suit and tie, and you're going these places, but nobody's really seeing the behind the scenes or behind the curtain, like a backdrop, what goes on behind that daily life of you or anybody who's like you, of right? So would you say that there are things intersecting in sciences and tech and philanthropy, what you do? Would you say that there are lots of things on the financial scale and aspect that people possibly don't see?
Yeah, that's a good point. Are you talking about from like an emotional standpoint of balancing all those different types of careers or hobbies, or just from the intersecting those fields?
um, Intersecting in those fields, how does it affect you financially? Because of course,
Mm,
going to these
yeah,
events,
yeah, yeah,
spending your finances, going to here, your money is
yeah,
always going to be tied to everything that you do.
yeah.
So
That's
how, in that aspect, or are there financial things that people don't see
yeah,
based on what
yeah.
you're doing?
That's a great question. So I mean, I would say, just in general, the cheapest way to stay connected to different things while working a full time job is volunteer, right? So I've done both. I've volunteered for different charities and agencies, and fundraised in that way, especially when I was coming out of school, because that's often your option, right? You don't really have to invest anything. If you're connected to different communities and you know people, then you have that as an option. But I would say from a more long term perspective, let's say if you're in a full time job and you do want to make a long term impact and really create a niche for yourself in certain subfields, I guess would be the right term. Then yeah, you may have to, let's say invest in whether it's like taking a course for something, or just if there's events that are uh, happening in the city, you might want to buy a ticket for an event. Like there's different ways that you can contribute your money towards that. I would say if it's just if you're just looking to do something once, there's no real need to invest. I would say money into that too much, because it's just like a one-time thing. If you're just exploring, if you're just going to a seminar, or if you're, there's
Right.
ways to volunteer, but if you are looking to, like for example, I'm passionate about teaching, so I would invest a little more time outside of my full time job into teaching, and buying tools that will help that as well. Whether it's like a second laptop, or getting noise canceling headphones, right? Getting things that will help you to build that as a side career or develop that hobby more. So it all depends on what that balance looks like. Short term, I think volunteering is a cheaper, especially for students. Um, who are looking for jobs that don't have as much money, or as much time. If you have exams and stuff like that, a lot of the time you're looking for a relief right outside of school. So you might do something on the side or with friends. But if you are a professional, you might consider creating a budget,
Mm-hmm.
or literally opening a bank account for side hop, call it side hops, and put money towards that over time, so you can sort of build those things out. So yeah, it all depends again on what the balance looks like, and whether you're doing it short term versus long term.
Okay, so in your case, because well, tutoring I would say is obviously what seems to be as a long-term thing with you, because
Mm-hmm.
while it is your passion, there is definitely a financial gain out of it, and that is a great exchange. You are
Yeah,
helping kids, in the respected areas of math and sciences and so forth in exchange for, of course, getting paid for
Yeah.
your worth and that kind of a thing. As you said, and from investing to a laptop to noise canceling headphones, all of these things, and obviously we know these things are going to build up over time,
Yeah.
right? And I don't know if necessarily going to take the direction as maybe registering a corporation or something your business. Like I don't know if that's something you would want to do long
Yeah.
term. But as you said right now, in a very small scale, it's still taking money.
Right.
That's still taking money. And let me be very cliche West Indian. When your parents spend their money, they be like, that is a big investment. And really
Yeah.
and truly, your education is a very big investment. Whether it
Absolutely.
was academic, whether it was trade,
Yeah.
whatever it is, it's still an investment.
Yeah.
So it
Absolutely.
takes some money and stuff. And as you said, volunteering has played a role with that with you. But I'm pretty sure there are certain expenses going along the way where it cannot be avoided. It's not
Yeah.
able to. It's not. You can't get around it, right? So for you, like an example, like what are things that you cannot get around? Like you have to invest in it where your career is going, diversely as a research analyst and educator. What are like expenses that you have to consider, and you cannot avoid it. It's definitely unavoidable.
So yeah, so that's a really good question. One of the things I would say is so a big thing that people are doing right now is a lot of people are working remotely for certain jobs, whether it's a side hustle or their main job. I know that like last year, one of the things we actually had like a company wide trip. It was a homecoming trip that the whole company went to. I think it was Arkansas in the States. So one of the expenses that you may want to consider, if you are relocating to a different spot is travel expense, right? So
Okay.
that in certain cases could be non-negotiable. Especially if you are working with people who are not in the country you're living in, your country of residence. Let's say you're working with people in the UK, or whatever, or if you're doing some sort of a placement, right? Like that's again, that's something that you would create a budget for. Other things just like regular transportation, or like for example, if you're taking like a cooking class or something, you might want to get food materials. So again, it all depends on what if it's something that's tied to your full-time job, and it's remote, you might not be spending money regularly for something like that because you're working from home. But if it's something that's like a side gig, and you're often having to relocate, or you're having to do presentations often or something like that, right? You might want to have a marketing budget because you might need to spend money on marketing materials, for example, right? So there's different ways that you'll want to tailor your life to that. It's also understanding your personal budget and how much money you need for, like, on a weekly basis, monthly basis, and then if possible forecasting that for the entire year as well, because again, you want to go as far back as possible, I would say, to understand your expenses. And I actually created, I never actually used to budget very much until about 3 years ago. And one of the reasons I created my personal budget was to literally like study myself.
Okay. So
Study my
you see,
spending.
apply that the years in Centennial College we had about. You decided that I'm putting myself in a hard copy lab book, and I'm going to actually dissect myself to make some sense of it.
Yep, yep. I mean, hey, the what I find is a lot of people study other people, but they don't study themselves. And I think that's really important because when you account for every dollar, and not just money, just time, everything, right? Calendarizing certain things, if you have meetings, when you're accounting for everything you're doing, it shows accountability, obviously, but it shows it's really just a way of staying on track with your goals and budgeting for that, right? So
understanding why, what's the purpose of this in my life? What is it? What's purpose is, what area is it serving? Do I need it? Why do I need it? How much money am I going to spend on it? Right. Because you want to be able to measure that work that you put in so that you can achieve that result in the end. And so, yeah, I believe that a lot of people, one of the reasons why some people sometimes may be a bit lost, or they start something that they're really passionate about, but they're not sure how to continue, or they're not sure exactly what time to allocate or what money to allocate, is because they don't really know themselves very well. They don't really know, hey, what's a need in my life versus what's a want. And so separating that, and the two things there, I think is really, really helpful. So yeah, I would always try to pinpoint, like, where your goals are. Again, what's a long-term priority versus what's a short-term priority, and then yeah, going from there.
Okay, so right now, obviously for you, being a research analyst and with your company that's very based on tech, it seemed as if that your investments of, let's say, maybe attending appearances, maybe investing in dressing well, because of course you have to dress well,
Yeah,
at
very
these
important. Yeah.
events. Monies may have been spent for gas and traveling. These things add up per month, and as you said, at being in that space, being in that tech space, I would think, or you can correct me if I'm wrong, it sort of unintentionally motivates you to use that into your teaching space, because tech is part of your
Right.
teaching space. And then if,
Right.
like you said, you are also a spoken word artist and you do that, so again, it's going to force you to be in arts and a creative space, and again, monies are being spent. So those things are not avoidable, as you said. They
Right.
add up, and those things are going to be the needs, right? They're not going to be the wants.
Right.
Because
Correct.
I think it's interesting when your passion becomes your need when it starts to pay the bills. When it
Yeah.
starts to pay the bill. People like to say,
Yeah.
oh, you want and you want and I want, but when what you want actually starts to pay the bills, that's a different
Yeah.
conversation.
Absolutely.
It's an absolutely different conversation. And I find it interesting, as you said, some people don't know. But what I have seen being in this financial landscape as a mortgage agent, not only doing mortgages, but I do debt consolidations, refinance renewal, sometimes people's lives get too busy. So sometimes it's not that you physically are not aware what you're doing,
Yeah.
but life is getting busy.
Yeah.
Life is actually getting busy.
Yeah.
Your career is getting busier. And I'm not even talking about the people who have kids or they have dependents or anything of that sort.
Yeah.
Sometimes when your job is getting busier, life is getting busier,
Yeah.
things are moving up to
Responsibilities
speed,
increase. Yeah.
responsibilities increase, that's where sometimes you may need the help. And I think people confuse help with also always being inadequate. Help is not necessarily that you're inadequate.
Right.
It's just that you need the extra leg or legs to run. So,
Absolutely.
so based on how you said you were able to identify your needs versus your wants, obviously within your needs, and I think that's all of us, sometimes we may have that intersection of where some needs may be a little bit heavier than others. And some needs we cannot avoid at all, right?
Right.
So, like for me, being in visual arts, I cannot afford to not purchase materials. I cannot afford to not purchase paintbrushes. I cannot afford to not spend money on canvases. I have
Right.
to spend my time. I have to always have high speed internet because I'm always using social media for promoting. Same thing being a mortgage agent. I'm always at networking events. I have to spend that. I have to invest time with clients.
Right.
All of these
Correct.
things add up to some form of finance, right? Paying my license. If I don't pay my license,
Yeah.
I cannot be a mortgage agent, and it'd be like, oh
Yeah.
God, look what this girl doing. She illegal. Get rid of she, right? And then I can't be and I can't be a mortgage agent
Or
again.
if you're in finance, like if you're in my field, for example, you have to renew certifications, right? Like every year and so on. So yeah, that's very true.
Yeah. So because like based on that, going on to the next question, what would you say that right sometimes your financial or and how that maybe sometimes could intersect with professional challenges? Because you said you separate your needs and your wants, and you know your needs and you're able to balance your wants. But the needs that are sometimes obstacles, not necessarily permanent obstacles, but they're obstacles sometimes, maybe financially during time and space. What are some of them would you say that you do sometimes encounter in intersecting careers, because all like this is not goal. You know, everything is for the gram. Everything is not like lovely. I could just post a little photo, click, click, with my
Yeah.
matcha, with my matcha smoothie, or in
Yeah.
Tobago, or I good. And then, you know, or you post the captions where you only seeing your hand drinking champagne and nice life, and whole time, you know, your belly grumbling. Or sometimes you might have been crying in a corner, or, you know what I mean? Life
Yeah.
is life, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So for you, what are some obstacles or challenges sometimes that you encounter from a financial perspective?
That's a good question. Hmm. So I work. Let me say I work remotely. So that takes a lot of financial burden off of me in terms of not having to commute too much every day for work, or buying food or whatever the case may be. Right? If you work for inside of an office, you got to buy lunch every day. Um, but yeah, I would say for me, I would say maybe a challenge could be, I would say, more time. So it more relates to like me balancing, so for example, I teach students virtually, I tutor virtually, and mentally, on when your brain is on all day and you're constantly on your laptop, and you're, whatever, it's more so like, budgeting your time, and really making time for your mental health and stuff like that. So I mean, one thing for me is understanding what your limits are, right? Understanding what works for you in terms of like balancing your schedule, right? So for example, if you are working a full-time job and you're dealing with a lot of software, a lot of data, a lot of stuff like that, um, making time to like take walks, or have tea, or doing things that will help you to balance all those responsibilities. Um, in terms of money, again, I would speak to, from a resource perspective, like, if you have, you might not be like, I work on a laptop, and typically I am able to use that same device for my tutoring. But let's say, for example, if you have like a monitor at home and you have specific things that you use for work, you might not be able to use that for tutoring or facilitation, right? You might have to use something else. Or like, let's say if you're on a Mac for work, you might need to use a PC for tutoring. So just understanding like what resources you need for each like genre of what you're dealing with, if it's work versus if it's something on the side. Let's say you work part-time at a gym and you're an instructor at the gym, you might need to buy workout equipment, right? So that, being able to do that is something that you'll have to spend money on, or you might have to renew some sort of certification, right? So basically, just understanding. I would say for me, time is the biggest thing, but for someone else, it could be, like a monthly subscription to something, or whatever the case may be. So yeah, I would say, but for me, I would say time, and balancing my schedules when it comes to handling multiple jobs.
So, well, for me, time is money, and not only for me, but the world time is money.
Yeah,
And if time is linked to money, because if you have an
absolutely.
exhausting day, and let's just say you tell said student A, I'm not able to tutor you,
Right.
that's a few dollars less.
Mm-hmm.
That's a few
Yeah,
dollars less.
absolutely.
So, are you saying that um, your financial challenges are sometimes linked to time? Because your
Absolutely.
IT, because being in a very high tech, very high space, very energetic company
Yeah,
that you're
fast paced.
working
Yeah.
in,
Mm-hmm.
it's obviously going to affect your finances
Yeah,
per
yeah. Well,
month.
yes, because so one of the challenges I deal with, or I used to deal with a lot more, was like, if you, so I did tutoring within education, as you know, and then obviously I did my own private stuff. And so when you are, if you're, let's say you have, let's say 5 appointments set up for the week, you're just from a personal standpoint, no one would know this, but from a personal standpoint, you're saying, okay, well, I expect to receive this amount of money. So you start budgeting for what you expect to receive, right? Now, in a finance landscape, you look at the principle of deferred revenue. If you haven't converted money into cash yet, it's not usable. You can't use it, right? It's not tangible. So
Oh
if, let's
yeah.
say you receive a cancel, let's say you have 5 appointments and three of those appointments are canceled, now the money that you expected to receive just from a financial standpoint and forecasting, you don't have that money. So that just from a projection standpoint can affect your the money that you anticipate to receive. Now, yes, obviously, if you're burned out, because a lot of people experience burnout with having multiple jobs and things. If let's say you're supposed to finish work at a certain time, let's say 5:30, but then you finish at 7, or you're supposed to finish at 6, but you have overtime and you're really tired. Maybe you need to get some tea, and then in 5 minutes you have a student. Well, again, that burnout can cost you money as well, because now you don't have the mental capacity to teach for another 1 or 2 hours, right? So yeah, definitely time is always linked to money. It's linked to productivity. And so trying to understand, it's also linked to your self-worth, right? Because a lot of people attach, okay, the type of money that they're making and the type of fields they're working for to their worthiness and their self-worth. And right. So it's a lot of emotions that you're also dealing with when you're working in multiple jobs as well, or whatever you're doing. So yeah, time for sure is linked to money. But yeah.
So definitely, and that based on, as you said, that if you project, let's say I'm earning $1,000 a month, but my burnout capacity, which actually will falls to my next question about finances impacting your ability to focus, based on your career field. Like you said, if you project maybe I'm supposed to earn $1,000 at the end of the month, teaching students, and then I end up actually earning $500. I had to pull back on that Earl Grey tea. I know you are you are the unseen ambassador, because you drink Earl Grey tea more than anybody else I know.
I love it.
You drink it more than anybody else I know. I think if Guyana wants an ambassador for Earl Grey tea, should be you, because you drink that 24/7. So I understand, like you said, if I'm making less, then I'm gonna have to adjust my finances that month, or like that those
Mhm.
next couple months. And obviously when you shift your finances around, that does alter certain things, and you multiply that
Yes.
by 12 months for the year, it's going to make a difference.
Yeah, and that's also why it's important to study your behavior, but also understand trends, like just understanding things that happen. Like if you're teaching multiple students, like I used to teach 10 students weekly, right? So probably 70% of the time, at least 2 of those students would cancel. So I'm that allows me to understand the behavior of my students, understand their challenges, my challenges, stuff like that. And then and again, that's exactly why you want to be able to budget for that, because if you're just like, a lot of people just sort of trust the universe to take. I mean, they don't really, they're not really studying themselves. They don't really have a plan or just an understanding of what happens week to week to week. And so when you're not accountable in that sense, you do tend to you may tend to spend money in certain areas where you could be using it for other things or what have you. So yeah, it's very important to understand your behavior, and also what you're looking to really get out of those experiences as well. If you have to spend more money on resources to do a side job, is it even worth doing the side job? Are you even going to make up? Are you going to break even, they say in accounting, or are you going to make up enough profit to cover what you spent? So those are the mental things from a strategic standpoint that you have to figure out as well. Like if it's going to cost you more to spend on materials for a side job that you're going to spend more time to do after your full-time job, that it might not be economically and mentally feasible, but it might. So just figuring those things out, I think, is also very, very important.
So having multi careers, right now, to do what you do, would you say that um, it's feasible right now? Do you think that 5 years from now it's going to be? Because you're an ambitious person, your career has grown, and the reason why I'm asking you is that as your career grows, you can't project how your career is going to grow. Like, it's going to grow, but you
Absolutely.
have no projection. Like, you have your plan. We all have,
Yeah.
well, some of us hopefully, and if you don't, you can get started. It's never
Absolutely.
too late to not get started.
Yeah.
If you even have your 5 year plan, I know you said you have your plans of different things. you don't know what kind of growth it's going to be. And even if it's the exponential growth that you do project, it could probably be even more rapid than you even expect because
Correct.
technology and education is, going in interesting directions simultaneously
Hmm.
at the same time.
Yeah.
So, going into that, do you think that you would be prepared? I mean, nobody's ever fully really prepared what's going to be because you can't
Yeah.
project and you can't know.
Hmm.
But do you think that big people like you, because you have to think about, okay, like I'm an IT, but I also teach, I have to think about, is it going to be feasible now? Do you think maybe these are things that people take for granted when you're in multi careers, maybe?
Yeah, that's a good question. So the way I look at it is, yeah. So a few things. So number one, it depends on, obviously the first thing is your capacity as a person. What you're knowing your limit as a person. That's the first thing. What can you handle? You cannot you cannot lie to yourself. Now, obviously, there's ways to increase your capacity. Like, let's say you want to handle a full-time job and then you want to do something on the side. There's ways to increase your mental capacity to do that. um, you could practice changing your diet so that you are eating foods that help you to stay awake longer or help your to improve your mental acuity. There's working out, there's different things, there's going for walks, so there's ways to increase that capacity if you determine that, hey, I am somebody who who wants to extend my work life, my hours of work in a day. The next thing is understanding the fields of choice. So, like, understanding, okay, if I'm working in finance, what does my company expect of me? What are my goals? How much work do I want to put into, like, how much effort do I want to put into this job? And do I have the effort to put in another extra 1 or 2 hours outside of work, or maybe even on the weekends, right? If you're used to sleeping in on Saturdays or Sundays, but now you want to do another job on Saturdays and Sundays, do you have that capacity? How is that going to affect you going into the next Monday? So things like that. Um, Another thing to think about is, as well, realistically, is like when you just, and this is a psychological fact, like when human beings, the longer you do something, the better your body becomes at it, right? So the more quickly you do it, the more you identify trends and differences and similarities, the better your brain adjusts around those challenges. So if you're doing something for 1 or 2 years already, um, if you were in school and you were doing extracurriculars, for example, you were doing sports, you were at the library, whatever the case may be, you're probably already used to doing multiple things and balancing stuff, and even balancing that with family and stuff like that. So the chances of you succeeding, if you were to do that in a professional sense, may be pretty high. But then the question is how much time do you want to invest? How much money do you want to invest? What field is it? If you're working as a nurse or something like that, the hours are probably longer. And then you have to figure out, again, what's my pay like? Do I need to work a second job or whatever? So um, understanding that the longer you do something, the better you become. So if you people who have been balancing multiple things for, let's say, I want to say 3 or 4 years, will probably have more success in the future, short term or long term, doing that, because they will understand themselves. They will also understand some of the changes and the adjustments that come along with doing some of those things. Um, and so and so the probability of succeeding in a full-time job and a part-time job, or if you're just doing like a workout after work, let's say you have a goal to lose weight or something, right? Or whatever the case may be. That's not necessarily a job, but it is energy that you're investing into that goal, right? So do I have the energy to finish a full-time job and then go to the gym, or do I want to wake up in the morning and do that? Because maybe if I go to the gym in the morning, I might feel more productive and energized for work, right? So it's understanding like what makes sense for you. it's not just like jumping into something because, oh, I need more money, right? Or I feel like I need to do something. Well, are you really going to be productive doing many things? Shayna, I used to be very, very busy doing multiple things, nonprofit, this, that. And then I started to think, okay, well, what am I actually doing? Like, am I productive? How much do these things mean to my actual life? Right. So it's basically like every now and then sort of taking a moment to be by yourself and think about, do I really want this? How relevant is it going to be to my life? And how, and is it going to benefit me in the long run? Money, time, and all these things included in that. So hopefully that makes sense.
Well, for me, um, as a financial professional, I look at all those things. But of course, my main forefront has to be finance because honestly,
Yes.
if your finances is not, it's not settled in one way or another, um,
It's not
you're going to
stable.
have problems in the long run, right?
Yep, absolutely.
So, right now where you are, so pretty much what you've said to me is that people who, let's say, who are in your career field, and even you yourself, financial professionals, have to be able to work with you to understand your direct financial goals and link to what is your Mount Rushmore. Is your Mount Rushmore earning a certain amount of figures? Is your Mount Rushmore living a certain life based on what you make? Is your Mount Rushmore where you want to have some sort of exponential growth in 5 to 7 years? Um, those are the kind of things that you're pretty much saying financial professionals like myself pretty much should look at or maybe be concerned with just because like being in tech is a lot and like I said education is growing. So
Yeah.
based on me, for example, me and you like, okay, well, Shayna, I'm doing this and right now, can you say that the tools that you're using now to financially curate and organize your life, do you think those same tools could take you even 5 to 7 years from now? You solely on your own?
Yeah, that's a good question. I want to say for me, yes. I mean, so my I know a lot of people use, and I've had conversations like these with my a friend of mine as well. He was using, I think, like a banking app to budget. Like there's those budgeting apps out there that you can download on your Android phone or iPhone. I simply just use Google Sheets or Excel. I created like a comprehensive document that contains all of my expenses and stuff like that and projections for savings and stuff. But in general, I'm always I also like to use whiteboards. So I'm always thinking, I'm always planning. For me, I would say yes, because I'm always like, I don't just rely. So the problem sometimes with people is they use tools and they rely on those tools specifically to provide them with information or data that will help them get to where they want to go. Now that's very, very good, but you also have to, it's like a, maybe like a weekly or daily thing of being able to think about, okay, is this, how is this changing my mind and my conscience and how am I benefiting from it? Like you can't just rely on a spreadsheet with numbers in it to make decisions. You have to almost reconcile that within yourself as well and understand, because like I said, your capacity will change. Some days you'll be tired, some days you'll have high energy, some day whatever, there might be a death in the family. Like there's different days, things change on a day-to-day basis. Companies change, right? Your company might choose to restructure, your company might choose to lay off. So with all those different changes, in my opinion, you can't just rely on external resources to just provide you with that model of what that looks like. You have to constantly revisit that topic, and even if possible, like have like an accountability person, right? That could be Shayna, it could be a mentor, it could be a family member, it could be someone that you tell your goals to, that you trust, obviously, to where you can revisit those goals and they could check in with you and say, hey, how is this going? Do you still see yourself teaching? Do you still see yourself going to the gym? Do you still see yourself volunteering to help kids or help charities? Like those things can change, right? Do you still have the budget for that? Like, so it's really, it's constantly revisiting those things. It's not just setting it and forgetting it. It's continuing to revisit those things because things change all the time. And also, for example, let's say, if you have a full-time job and your responsibilities at work change, now you might not have time to a lot to teaching kids or whatever the case may be. So now you might drop that. So it's really trying to stay up to date. It's also staying up to date with the field you're working in, right? I'm a firm believer in, if the machine is not broken, don't fix it. And so if you are, most likely the full-time job that you're doing is getting you the majority of the money. So if your responsibilities do increase there, then your goal of doing whatever on the side might drop out, because so there's just different, it's continuing to stay up to date with how your life is changing, and again, all of that accompanied with like your budgeting and your time management, right? All of that accompanied with having someone accountable, all that accompanied with understanding your needs as a person. If you need more sleep, then having a longer day might not benefit you, right? Or if you need more coaching, or if you need more, you need to pick up a certification or pick up some sort of education that will help you to get further in your field or what have you. So yeah, it's continuing to evaluate your wants and your needs, and going back to that conversation as well.
So if I had to take that philosophy, for example, let's just say something in real estate. Let's just say 7 years from you decide, well, I want to invest in a form of real estate, and I'm going to go to Scotiabank, and they say, well, Mr. Elleston, this is your mortgage. This is what you have chosen, your mortgage, which is best for you. And you've gone through that 5.8%. And let's say said counterpart of yours, let's just say whether it's spouse or friend or whatever, says, I've met this professional professional, and they're actually able to get a lower rate. Are you going to stay within the parameters of your trajectory and stay with the 5.8 because you think it works best for you? Or are you going to go with an alternative extensive resource? Because I'll play devil's advocate here. You said that we don't necessarily need external resources. I'll give a very simple example of external resource. Your AirPods. You're using it all the time. Now, you may have bought it from Best Buy, or you would have bought it from, let's say, Staples. Wherever you would have bought it from, that was an external supplier. You don't necessarily really need to rely on them, but you still got something from them. You still got a resource from them.
Yeah.
So if I'm entering something into real estate, are you going to say that you are self-sufficient all the time to navigate yourself in certain financial situations? And like I said, going into real estate, it's a very different conversation.
Yeah.
Because spreadsheets is not enough for real estate. that's a totally different conversation. You can't even do that for nonprofits within a couple months. You need more than that, because technically, if we didn't rely on external resources, it's going to swallow up a lot of time. Because sometimes when people have external resources, it's not that they don't know, they're not able to. It's like, where are you getting the time even when you remove all your wants?
Right.
So that's my question to you. If you're going into real estate or you're going into something, would you approach it in such a way where I'm always able to navigate the resources myself from a garden of fruits? Or am I able to always have the fruits to navigate myself?
Yeah, that's good. So I would say, number one, your level of literacy will determine that. Now, here's what I'll actually say, 'cause I think it's a good question. I think that real estate itself, with that landscape, I think that when you're navigating, like if you're looking to buy property, you're looking to buy a house, condo, whatever the case may be, I think that taking the time, the first step, if I were to approach it, would be to take your time to educate yourself on what's out there, and to understand that landscape in that field. Now, you are also going to want to, in my opinion, you're also going to want to have conversations with professionals who are prepared to help you, and also, prepared to help you understand the gravity of the decision and what you're doing, and the value of interest rates and all these different things. It's not obviously something that you want to navigate by yourself. However, going into that conversation having no knowledge at all, and not having done any research and having any literacy on it, just like you're talking about financial or any type of literacy, is also not very good. So you want to have a modicum of a level of literacy in the subject. You also want to understand what your goal, like if you're looking at properties, you want to understand what your goals are, and and where that fits in with your overall life. Like for example, there's ways to do business in real estate. Do you want to get a property or get a condo to do condo flipping, or is it tied to some sort of investment, or is it for living only? So like things like those, you want to obviously have an understanding of, okay, where do you fit within this overall plan? And then from there, understanding, okay, does my current job or does my current financial portfolio or profile support that decision?
Right. And if I may interject you there, I want to know about you. Yes, you. Yes, the star of the show for the past 50 minutes. You. Do you think that in future you can navigate this all on your own? Does Troy have the garden? Does Troy have the garden to make sure everything is copacetic, or Troy may have to step outside his garden ever so often and talk to a farmer to help him grow that sapodilla tree that he may use for profit?
Yeah. I think that I don't. I do. Like I said, I one thing I've always said is I don't want to be part of any conversation where I have no knowledge of it. So I'm always trying to educate myself. But I think in general, no, I would for sure benefit from having utilizing external resources in people or what have you, to have conversations about what's currently happening in the landscape of real estate. And I say that because information is very, very important. What you don't know can hurt you, and what you don't know, when you're not, like, ignorance is one of my biggest pet peeves. I don't like being ignorant of anything. And so if I have to connect with an outside resource to get information that I need on a certain topic, whatever that topic is, then I will do that. And so I'm while I'm not, I don't believe in being reliant solely on external. I believe that you have to, again, have some literacy. I would not be able to do that on my own. No, I think that it's important to venture out.
Oh, so therefore I can expect a call from you next couple of years, and you're not going to pay the 1.1% extra percentage because you're brilliant, right? But no, but no, even me myself, I don't like to be part of conversations that I don't know, and if I don't know anything at all, and I'm not able to, it's hard for me to absorb. I at least want to go to persons who I trust to give me a loop if I at least don't understand anything. So having this unique experience, and you shared such a unique experience with my viewers, on the diversity of the things you do and so forth, what are ways you think financial professionals like myself could benefit somebody like you, that you are informed about things, but all the resources that I have as debt collection, refinance, renewal, access to lenders. A lot of people don't know there are lenders that are actually more open now to having you with a 500 bruise credit score. There are lenders who are more open to business for self, seasonal business for self. There's so much of things that are not necessarily spoken about as much. And it's not that it's not available, it's just there, right? And obviously, like you said, information is lucrative, right? And the more that you have it, you're actually more and informed to make better decisions. And maybe you can be able to let certain people trust those people to make those decisions on your behalf and navigate whatever goals that you want. You know what I mean? So based on the closing of that, and we had a great conversation here, what would you say financial professionals like myself, you being in tech and education, what do you think are simple, just very basic core things that we could do? So like somebody like you right now, like with your projection, 5 to 7 years from now, what do you would say, okay, Shayna, this is what somebody like you could really benefit, or this is what I would like to benefit from somebody like you?
Yeah, that's a loaded question. I'll give you the latter part first, and then I'll go back to the beginning of your question, because I think that this is relevant to all stratospheres of society, from education to professional. So the first thing is, is I think the easiest. I think mentoring and counseling in certain areas should always be encouraged, especially with professionals. I mean, a lot of people who are making decisions to buy homes or invest in condos or what have you are making those decisions as a professional, meaning that they either have, if it's like 0 to 10, they could have zero knowledge, they could have two, they could have three, they could have whatever level of knowledge, but they're making it. They have a full-time job and they want it. They know that they want a property. So I think that providing that counseling or mentoring as a service, to try and sort of educate people in that, in those areas that you mentioned. I think that's one thing that could really be
All
helpful.
right, number one. I
Um,
mean, it is a service. It can't be anything else. I mean, it's not a
for
hamburger and
sure,
fries. So
for sure.
it
Yeah,
is a service. So great.
yeah,
Service is
yeah,
definitely number one.
yeah,
To educating whatever goal you need to meet. All right, good, good.
yeah. Yeah, I also think that disseminating that information in different ways, from a putting on like a marketing hat. I think that doing certain things, like having just like podcasts and things on social media, because a lot of people after COVID, they get their information in like bite-sized videos,
Okay.
and stuff like that. And so I think that disseminating that information through different types of media or mediums is very, very important. Um, I know I've worked for RBC. There's very creative ways that banks and financial institutions are choosing to share information with people. Like there's ads on bus stops, there's stuff on phones, like there's different ways that they're
Okay, so
disseminating
so we're going
information.
into the marketing into the public domain. So not just like you said, podcast and interview, but
Yeah.
we're actually going in the public domain and
Mhm.
directly impacting from the conversation and things to sort of like subconsciously absorb over a period of time. Okay, great, great. Number
Mhm.
two, what's the next
Yeah,
one?
yeah. I would say the third one is, you know, there's a lot of, and maybe what you do intersects with fintech or not, but there's a lot of different, people are doing business with not just traditional banks, doing business with different types of other financial institutions, even credit unions and so on. I would partner with or intersect with nonprofits and schools as well. And I'll tell you why I say that. It's also part of what I want to do as becoming a consultant in an educational or business capacity. And I say that because when you're in school, so financial literacy and real estate literacy should really start from school, okay? Because when you get out of school, you're becoming a professional. You're making your first few financial decisions as a professional, or as a human being. You're starting to kind of make those somewhat medium to big decisions of where am I going to go, where am I going to live, I might be moving out, whatever the case may be. So all those things are sort of amalgamated into one thing, right? You're graduating, you're looking to pay off student loans, you're looking to get a full-time job, or you have a job already. Maybe you're in a placement, maybe you're in skilled trades. I think that a lot of people have that real estate conversation really late in the game. So they're not putting money towards investments when they get a full-time job. They're just not aware, and then, or they're not working on their credit. So that conversation needs to happen earlier in the game so that people can be more prepared longer. Because that's the biggest decisions. And I had this conversation literally with an Uber driver one time, I think last year. Buying a car, buying a home, planning for your parents' will, all these conversations are very, very big. They're all financial conversations. They're all of them. They're all financial. They're all conversations where you're going to have to think about money, think about time, think about insurance, think about investments. These are all financial conversations. And if you're not having them, and you're not aware that you should have them, at a certain point, number one, it can impact you financially a lot in the future. If you're getting married, it can impact you as well, because if you're getting married, you're going to be looking for property, or maybe not. Maybe you'll be looking to, move in with your partner or whatever. In some way or some capacity, it's going to affect your finances. So I would say partnering with those institutions, and I bring up nonprofit and charities because a lot of a lot of people I have worked with charities in the past as well. Um, and obviously the way that charities do business is a bit different from banks and all these other things. But, if you're making any money with any institution, um, being able to go to work and experience a seminar or a podcast or a webinar where, hey, oh my God, like this is another option I can use for my future. Like, so something as simple as that, where you can kind of create that aha moment, right? So I would say if you're partnering with those institutions, like that will give people the opportunity to ask questions. They don't have to go anywhere. Like I'm at work and I can, what I'm trying to say, and I can ask those questions. I don't have to go and look for you. It's intervening and meeting people where they're at, as opposed to expecting people to just go and whatever. Because a lot of the algorithms and the models that exist today are everyone's going to you. Everyone's sending you a video, or they're sending you a notification, or they're sending you an ad, or they're marketing to you. It's not like before where you have to go and get something. You're like, so if you're not going to people, the opportunity for impact, it's still there. The market's still there. People are still there, but it's, you might not make that connection organically as much. So that's my spiel on that. Hopefully that made sense.
Well, I am so glad that you shared that, because it just reinforces that the idea that I have to bring financial literacy to academic institutions from undergrad to graduate, these things
Yep.
are very, very important. And based on your passion as well, I'm looking for you to support based on you going into that space. So, in all, thank you so much for sharing all of that with me. I think it was so lucrative for our viewers to hear from those perspectives, very diverse and such. So, just in closing of our conversation, I have these 5 fun questions. I ask all my guests 5 fun questions, and it's like a this or that. So, I'm actually nothing too hard to put you on the spot, but so let me just start with the first question. The first question is potato ball or egg ball? Which one?
Potato.
Potato ball. I honestly, when I used to eat eggs, I was a fan of the egg ball a little bit more than
Yeah.
the potato ball. I was a little bit, but with now I don't consume eggs, I'm just more towards the potato ball. Care to give us a bit of a reason why, or that's just your preference?
I don't know. I've never been big on eggs. Like, I mean, eggs are a good source of protein. They're really good, but I've never been big on, yeah. I've never been like big on eggs. Yeah, I'm gonna keep it there
Okay, so
without offending any of the viewers.
okay, so tutoring biology or tutoring chemistry?
Oh, wow. Well, you can't have biology without chemistry, Shayna.
Listen, for some people's mental health, you have to separate the two. And you saw from the years in Centennial, I had to separate the two for my mental health.
So when we met at Centennial College, I actually started tutoring chemistry first. So chemistry is kind of my first love. I'm good at biology, but I prefer chemistry, so I'm gonna say chemistry. But that's close though; it's very close. Yeah.
Okay, so third one is Solara or Pine Tart? Which one?
Oh, we're going to the Caribbean.
Well, I mean, for every time I said potato or egg ball, I mean,
Pine Tart.
I've entered your continent of South America.
Continent. I'd say Pine Tart for sure. Yeah.
Oh, Pine Tart. I'm honestly more of a Solara person.
Yeah, I can see that. I can see that.
What do you mean you can see that? What's that supposed to mean?
No, I mean I just
I just pull in your leg.
I could just it fits your personality. I mean, again, that's close, right? But yeah, I'd say Pine Tart. Yeah.
Okay, Pine
Close
Tart.
though.
Okay. All right. So the fourth one is pineapple or mango?
Mango. No question. Absolutely no question. Absolutely none.
Now the brokerage I work for is pineapple, and I like both.
I know.
I like both. So you just said mango. You don't even, not even, just mango, hands down.
I'll change my answer to pineapple so you can get an honorable mention.
All right, mango it is, mango, right? So my last question, this might be the toughest question, right? And like I said, my viewers always appreciate different perspectives, and this is a comfortable space for people to share. Chicken curry or curry chicken?
Oh God. Oh Lord. You know what's funny?
You see,
My brother
every
got married.
time you start, it is funny.
No,
You want to be politically correct
so I
and
gotta say
culturally
this. So
correct.
so my older brother got married last year, and my sister-in-law, one of her friends had I kid you not, a group chat on WhatsApp devoted to like arguments between like chicken curry, like an entire group. I'm like, this is crazy. So I will say curry chicken.
Curry chicken.
Curry chicken.
You will see curry chicken. All right. Okay. I see curry chicken too. I'm culturally sensitive
Yeah.
that my neighbors, because South America is very close to Trinidad, so I always say
Yeah.
South America is my neighbor,
Yeah.
and I
Yeah.
know they say chicken curry, but in Trinidad we say curry chicken. So I
I think
think
both
you
of my mother says chicken curry as well.
okay.
So all good, but yeah, I it's curry
So
chicken for
you
me.
don't get any flack for saying curry chicken.
All right,
You don't know
cool,
what I'm
cool.
saying. No, I'm saying I'm asking you in your community and
Oh,
stuff in
nice.
your household or anything. You don't get flack for.
No, no, no. My brother and I argue about it all the time, which is funny. I think we had this conversation about it like a couple of weeks ago. But no, no.
So your
They,
home is
they
a safe space. Because
it's exactly it's a psychologically safe. Yeah, exactly.
it's a safe
We
space
we
to say
have
curry chicken.
we have an understanding. But yeah, I would say, but it's funny. A lot of my sister-in-law's friends are the go in the other direction. So yeah, it's
They go in the other direction. You want to repeat it?
the
Okay.
other direction.
Well, thank you so much for answering those questions. In closing, is there anything you would like to just briefly say to our viewers or anything of the sort in this interview? Anything of the such?
Yeah, I mean, so shout out to Pineapple, and shout out to you, Shayna. I know that you've always been doing great work, and I know that you also have a lot of artwork out there. So kudos to you for that as well. And yeah, I'm very very happy and honored that we could do this sort of this venue and speak on this. It's very important. And whatever you need, if you ever want to work with me to do any of that and obviously promote your message and do marketing and stuff, I'm happy to do that. So yeah, thank you once again, and keep doing what you're doing. It's very very impactful.
Okay, well, like viewers, as you said it, thank you so much for spending the time with Troy and myself hearing it. And as we always say on Value and Vibes with Rivelle, everything is about learning, fun, and financial literacy. And doing it together is always better than doing it alone. Thank you so much. And Troy, thank you so much for coming to the show.
Yeah, thanks as well, Shannon.